So I want you to audit your habits because it starts with you, the boss, you, the leader. When are you sending emails? When are you sending messages? When do you feel like that pressure to be available, the most pressure to be available? And I wrote down here, it's our responsibility. It's a leadership responsibility to set those boundaries. The employees, your team need to be able to see you doing what you expect. Stay focused on the boundaries that you set when the times were good. Be consistent. That's all what I'm saying here. Consistency will win the long term. Consistency will win trust. Consistency, it will overcome the greatest challenge. Hey everyone, John here. Welcome to the episode today. When remote work exploded, everyone thought we'd finally cracked the code to work-life balance. More freedom, fewer commutes, more time for what really matters, right? But instead of giving us balance, remote work blurred the lines even further. So now bosses and teams are working longer, they're answering emails at night, and we wonder why burnout is rising instead of falling. But here's the truth that I've learned. Remote work, it wasn't the fix. The future belongs to leaders like you who can redefine boundaries, not as perks, but as non-negotiables. Because if we can't produce and protect boundaries for yourself, then how are we supposed to protect them for our team? And you won't just lose productivity, you're going to lose your best people. So today I'm going to show you how to future-proof your leadership so work-life boundaries hold up no matter what the workplace looks like. So let's start by first pulling back the curtain on what I'm going to call, in this first point that we're going to talk about, the remote work mirage. Here's the thing. Remote work created that flexibility, but it didn't automatically create balance. And for many of us out there, it made things worse. Suddenly the office wasn't a place you went to, a physical place. It was everywhere you were all of a sudden. And whether it was the living room, your car, even your bed at midnight, that line between work and life wasn't just blurry, it completely disappeared for some of us. And so that's where the problem really begins. And that's where I want to start with the conversation today, because as I was journaling this morning, and as always, I'm always trying to bring you all value with real world applications. And these applications are things that I've used over my 20 plus years working with teams, working with businesses, hiring and retaining employees. And one of the things that I wrote down today is, the key point here, and I asterisked this and I circled it. We live in this false sense of flexibility. And we thought that remote work, hybridized work, telework, whatever we're going to call it, or whatever you want to look at it as, but working from home, it really was the panacea. Like, it was this work-life balance that we've been striving for. Before, work-life balance was having sleep pods at Google, or going down to the cafeteria and being able to figure out what you wanted to eat and just point at it and it was free, right? Those were incentives. Many of times, that's how we incentivize people to move from one company to the next, especially the best talent, the top talent. But what it did really, it's costing us. And it's costing us this hidden burnout where those blurry lines between where we stop work and we start life, our home life, our personal life, maybe that's even another side gig that we start up. It's costing us this quieting disengagement. We're seeing employee engagement. I remember a time where, and this is a prime example, did anybody have happy hours on Fridays or company picnics or potlucks? Do you continue to have those anymore? Are those community events? As workplaces, we spend more time at work than we do at home for most of us. And those just office parties, and I don't even know if parties is the right word, get-togethers, let's just call them get-togethers because I don't want to create any kind of confusion around what we're talking about. So office get-togethers, they really are a thing of the past. And what occurred was this disengagement. Quiet quitting, you hear words, phrases that come up all the time. But if this is happening in your organizations, or you've gone away from the fact that you've really gone away from office engagements, whether it's a potluck or even going out to lunch, we need to rethink those things. So as we talk about the applications here, and this is one that I really do 100% believe that organizations were getting it wrong. We are getting wrong the fact that this whole notion of remote work or telework or hybridized work that created this work-life balance, what we're really doing is we're disconnecting from each other. So I want you to audit your habits because it starts with you, the boss, you, the leader. When are you sending emails? When are you sending messages? And the next question I want to ask, and you really asking yourself, because I've had to ask these difficult questions. How fast do you expect a response? Those two things, like when you're sending messages, when you're sending, whether it's uploading a document, it may not even be an email, it may be an instant message. Are you sending them after hours when most people are going home because you still got a couple things to do and you're just checking them off the list? And then what's the expectation for a response? Is that going to be different if you were sending them in the morning during work hours versus if you were sending them in the evening? Because I can tell you, it's not different in the mind of your employees. Is it different in your mind? If I get a message, whether it's in after hours or during hours, the expectation is that I respond to that message. At least I hope it is in your offices. And if that is the expectation, then what are you doing? What are you doing as a boss sending those messages if the expectation is for your employee to respond back to that? So I want you to audit your habits first. And then a couple applications that I wrote down here. And this is a great question that I ask teams, I ask people I coach really often is, when do you feel like that pressure to be available, the most pressure to be available? Is it during the weekends? Is it on vacation? I would simply first ask yourself that question, then ask your team that question, ask your employees that question, and sit back and see what they say, because you're going to be surprised at the responses. And you may get everything from on a Friday night to early Monday morning before I start work to on the weekend. I mean, whatever they're going to tell you, that's where you need to start. That's going to be our starting point for some of the other strategies that we're going to talk about later. And then, this mirage that I talked about, this remote work mirage, starts to become clearer when our boundaries become the expectation, become the norm, not the option. And so this next area we're going to talk about is leaders set the boundary standard. And what I mean there is teams don't follow policy. And you've heard me say over and over again, your employees will do as you do, not as you say. So if you got a policy that says work ends after whatever time, 7 p.m., and here you go firing off emails or instant messages after 7 p.m., they're going to follow you. I don't care what that policy says. They will follow you as the leader and the boss of that organization, of that company, of that team. So boundaries should not be individual choices. They need to be ingrained in your culture. And where does that culture start? It starts with you, the leader. Hey everyone, a quick break in the episode today. Are you struggling to find and keep the right employees? You're not alone. High turnover drains time, money, and morale, leaving us frustrated, overwhelmed, and feeling like we have to settle for less. I understand how tough hiring can be because I've lived it. And with over 21 years of building high-performance teams, I know how to turn hiring challenges into lasting employee success. Through my proven lead framework, we're going to analyze your processes, design a personalized strategy, and implement solutions that create confident and long-term results. Don't let turnover hold you back. Choosing this program is that first step towards a thriving workplace. Enroll today at thejohnespinosa.com and build the team you deserve. Imagine a team that works seamlessly together or keep facing the same costly cycle of turnover. The choice is yours. Now back to our episode. And I wrote down here, it's our responsibility. It's a leadership responsibility to set those boundaries. And for us, it's also protecting those boundaries is a key step to retention. In fact, I would even argue that it is a priority in retaining our best employees and retaining the best talent that you have in your organizations. And I've seen this on my teams, in the businesses that I've worked with, in the businesses that I've worked for, when those boundaries become individual choices. Somebody sets the boundary that they're going to answer emails after hours. Another person sets their boundaries as I'm only responding during work hours. Guess what? Now you have competing interests. And when you talk about performance, who's going to get the next raise? Who are you going to give the next promotion to? Because you, the leader, have blurred those boundaries. You haven't set them yourself. So now you have discrepancies because what you said isn't what you're doing. And culture is all about what we tolerate and what we celebrate. So are you celebrating the fact that somebody's sending you emails at all hours or responding to your emails at all hours? Or in really the other side of that coin is, are you tolerating it? And if you are, then we need to change that. So what are some ways that we can change that? We got to have these visible guardrails. And when I talk about guardrails, there are guidelines, especially with boundaries. And when I mean or say the word visible, they really need to be spoken and they need to be part of your behavior. So you need to verbally say them. No work after 7 p.m. for anybody, including me, the boss, or maybe it's a no meeting on Monday morning. So everybody gets in the office, they're able to catch up on whatever Friday afternoon brought, right? After they cut off or after the end of the day. And then get into the meetings in the afternoon on Monday. Whatever those guardrails look like, they need to be visible and you need to demonstrate them through visibility. The employees, your team need to be able to see you doing what you expect. So I'm just going to use our lead framework here because I wrote down and I've coached on this recently. And so I thought it was valuable for you all. Again, this is an active listening podcast, so get out those pens and papers and write this down because LEAD, that's our proven framework that I've developed based on my 20 years of experience, based on coaching multiple teams, multiple businesses, multiple leaders. And where the listen component, the L in the LEAD, what I want you to do is I want you to listen where burnout shows up. So go back to that question when I asked about, what is the most pressure you have to be available. That's where burnout probably is showing up in your organization, but it requires you to ask the question and then sit back and listen. The envision part here with the E is you have to envision, you yourself have to envision what a healthier work life looks like. And you got to be able, again, to verbalize that and to paint that picture. The A, the alignment, now what we got to do is we got to reinforce, we got to align our expectations, what we're saying, and the behaviors that we're demonstrating. And we need to make sure that that's in alignment by reinforcing them through those expectations. And then we got to drive it home, the D, by doing what we're going to say we're going to do. We got to lead by example. So that's an excellent framework there to use when we're talking about setting boundaries as the standard as leaders. And then the last one, now what do we got to do? We got to future-proof this thing. Because we talked about this mirage that remote work has created. We've talked about why boundaries are important. Now, how do we keep them that way? And here, work models are going to consistently shift. We've gone to an in-office environment. We've gone to a global environment. We've gone to a hybridized environment. We've gone to virtual offices where you kind of show up, but you're not necessarily, all different models. We can't control those. As bosses and as leaders, especially if you're working for larger corporations. Now, if you have a small business, you may be able to control some of that when people show up and where they show up. But for the most part, a lot of the other bigger companies, they're moving models all the time. And it depends on where you hire people sometimes. It depends on where the headquarters office is or where the production or where the main, manufacturing plants are or where your customers are at sometimes. So those models are shifting. We can't control that. So what can we control? We can control the boundaries that we set. And that's how we're going to future-proof this. We're not going to worry about whether the models change. What we are going to do is we're going to set those boundaries. So those that are in the office with you, we're going to stop working at 7 p.m. just as well as the people who are working remotely. Now, time changes. I hear you just screaming through the camera right now. John, what about time changes? I got a global workforce, or, I have people spread across all 4 or 5 time zones in the U.S. What am I going to do? Then you got to adjust those work hours. There has to be a point in time where you're going to start and you're going to stop, whether that's boundaries. And if you can't do that, then what's another boundary? Get creative here. Like, as you start work in the East Coast and then you move out to the West Coast of the United States, how are you going to set meetings? Are there going to be core hours where you all are going to promise to respond to each other, or set that boundary to respond to each other between the hours maybe of 10 a.m. Central Time and 2 p.m. Central Time? That allows everybody the ability to flex hours before and after that, but those are going to be the core hours where you're going to have all your meetings, whether they're with stakeholders, internal meetings, external meetings, all of that. But you see where I'm going here? So don't just be so rigid to think that, oh, well, John said that's not, 7 p.m. is the cutoff time, and that's not going to work for my organization. Then what will work is my question to you. That would be my next question. So the other thing, we got to create systems, because without systems, without those boundaries in place, when times get tough, and they will get tough, when the stress comes on, if we don't have a clear system, they're just going to fade away. Those boundaries that we created and may be working on, maybe they may even last 30 to 45 days, and then here comes the next big challenge down in the organization. And what happens? We're not clear on the expectations. We're not clear on those boundaries. We don't have them set. You don't model them, because we're going to revert back. We're going to revert back in stressful times to what's comfortable. And what's comfortable is just getting the job done, because that's what got us here. But what's going to move us forward and future-proof our organizations are those clear boundaries. So even when time gets tough, I know you're going to want to revert back to just give me the answer. Just reply to my email. Don't do that. Refrain from doing that. Stop yourself from doing that. Stay focused on the boundaries that you set when the times were good. Be consistent. That's all what I'm saying here. Consistency will win the long term. Consistency will win trust. Consistency, it will overcome the greatest challenge. So some applications here. Again, thinking about time-based outcomes versus performance-based outcomes. And this is a shift that people are struggling with right now. If you don't give me 8 hours of your time, you're not of value to me. I don't care what you're doing during that 8 hours. You can be in your cubicle, your office, watching YouTube, watching John's Leaders podcast, which I hope you're doing, by the way. But whatever you're doing, as long as you're here 8 hours, I'm good. That's old school leadership mentality. Like, we need to be focused on performance. We need to be focused on getting jobs done, getting tasks done, meeting deadlines. That's really what we're in business for. I'm not into micromanaging somebody and make sure that they show up at 7 a.m. and clocking out at 3:30 p.m. to get their 8 hours and their 30 minutes of lunch and then timing their breaks. If you have employees like that, you got to make a change. Because in the end, you don't own a business. You own a job. And I want to own a business. I got into owning businesses to build systems that last, to build a business that I can step away from for a week or so and it not fall all apart, and eventually step away from, who knows, for eternity, for however long, and leave that business as it is and let it continue to grow and let it continue to flourish and let that revenue continue to come in. So last but not least, and I'll just leave you with this because I challenge you to take one of these and implement it. And then give me some feedback. Is it working? I would love to hear feedback. I would love to hear what other strategies that you work. Put them in the comments. Leave them in the comments. If you've stuck around this long, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to grow yourself, which is going to grow your businesses. It's going to grow your teams. It's going to retain your top talent. it's going to make you marketable where when you got to hire, because granted, we all have to hire at some point, especially if we're a thriving business and we're growing, you're going to have to hire people. But now what you've done is you've created a culture where you don't have to go out and recruit. People are knocking at your door. Hey, John, you got any opportunities? I heard that one of your businesses is doing really well. I heard that's the time to, be a part of your whatever you're running. I heard it's the team to be a part of. Those are the comments that you want to make or that you want to hear. So I'll leave you with this. Remote work really exposed the cracks in our organizations, in our frameworks. Now, as leaders, we have to set those boundaries to future-proof our businesses and our organizations to flourish and to allow the top talent to thrive and our businesses in turn to grow. I believe in you. I know you can do it. Thanks for listening. Go be great. Talk to everyone later.